Joining me at the table of the stars of Crimson Peak, Mia Wasikowska, Jessica Chastain, and Tom Hiddleston. Welcome.
Thank you.
Our friend Guillermo del Toro was going to be here. He's been a great friend of this program and never fails to amaze me at where his imagination is.
Yes.
And he said that this is one of his, to quote him, 3 favorite films that he's ever made. Why do you think that is?
I think it's something to do with he's poured into this film all of his own personal passions, his greatest inspirations, his favorite novels, his favorite movies, his favorite paintings, like all of the things that he loves most in the world, the genre of Gothic romance, you know, Guillermo is a director who finds beauty in the shadows.
Yes, he does. Yes.
So I think that's why he loves it so much.
Yeah. Tell me, I'm told that he gave each of you like 10 or 15 pages of backstory so you would understand your character.
It was pretty incredible because usually I do that on my own. You know, directors don't want to mess with backstory or subtext. They don't really even want to know. And this was the first film I've done where the director actually gave me the information of what happened in the family, what happened when she was born, up and through till when the movie begins. And what a great starting point for an actor to then fill in the character. And being on set, Guillermo and I were on the same team because if I would make a choice or react a certain way, he knew why, because we both had the same secrets.
So it made it easier.
I think it's much easier to work at it as a collaboration when everyone's has the same information.
So tell us who Lady Lucille is.
Well, Lady Lucille is the sister of Sir Thomas Sharp, and they're desperately trying to keep their house going. It's sinking into the clay, and they need to find the money to bring the house back from history. She's deeply rooted in the house, so much so that Guillermo connected the costumes to the walls, so it almost looked like she could be coming out of the walls itself. And, you know, she's all about history and the past and wanting to be there and stay there. And Edith is all about the future, and it's the polar opposite.
And Tom?
Well, Thomas Sharp is a dreamer and an inventor and an engineer, and as the film opens, we discover that Thomas is in the New World. He's in Buffalo, New York, and he's looking for sponsorship for his new machine. And he's distracted by the energy and the beauty and the charm of Edith, Mia's character. And in a way, they're both creative people, they're both outsiders. But he, in the structure of Gothic romance, he's the tall, dark stranger with the mysterious past who perhaps the heroine isn't quite sure whether she can trust, and perhaps the audience too. But,
and what's the relationship in terms of the feeling between Thomas and Lady Lucille?
Without revealing too much, it's a complex one. They are brother and sister, and there are many things they share. Right. They are ostensibly sort of impecunious aristocrats from the old world of Europe, and the house they own, a place called Allerdale Hall, sits on Crimson Peak, where the film gets its title, and they are victims of their inheritance in so many ways. The house is a representation of their very complex and damaged inheritance, psychologically, physically. It is a film about the past and the future and how you can be weighed down by the secrets in your past. But Thomas and Lucille are different in more ways than their gender. And I think as the film progresses, you see how they choose to make different choices.
And you represent Edith?
Yes, I play Edith.
Who's very much the future.
Yeah, and you know, at the beginning of the film, she's a very ambitious young writer, and then also slightly naive, which is why she kind of ends up getting swept into this romance that turns out to be very different from what she expected, and has to kind of, you know, find her way out of that. But yeah, I think, as Jessica was saying, that Lucille and Edith are kind of the polar opposites, and Tom's character ends up being in the middle, kind of in, you know, representing that struggle between the past and the future.
A perfect segue to this scene between where Edith and Thomas arrive at Crimson Park. Here it is. So, because he's not here, let's represent him.
Yes.
All right. What does he bring to the directing of the film?
He's, well, apart from his
Beyond
very...
backstory.
Oh yeah, he's got such a unique imagination, and he brings a really, like, very clearly his own perspective to his films, I think. It manages to sort of mesh together a number of different genres, because I don't think any of his films are specifically one genre. But then as a director of the actors, he's super collaborative and so supportive and just really, you know,
But if you look
involves
at the
us.
body of his work and including the books, I mean, you come away with the impression of what kind of mind is behind all this.
Yeah, I
it's-
always think the healthiest people are the ones who make the most disturbing films. They kind of,
Yeah.
you know, work out their stuff in a
Yeah.
really
It's a kind of-
controlled
yeah.
space, and
It's
then
their own
they're super
therapy and
delightful.
catharsis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry. One of the very first interviews I saw of Guillermo before I ever met him was on your show.
Yes.
And he brought his journals.
Right. And we looked at him.
And those, I mean, it's a perfect representation of who he is. He's constantly thinking, and his imagination is going wild, and he's creating monsters, and he loves his monsters. That's what I love so much about him. He has compassion for someone that at first glance, whether it be people or creatures, you think, that's wrong, that's bad. And he goes, well, maybe not, because he has a little love for everybody.
Yeah. I'm also amazed at, and we did programs about that, his colleagues from Mexico and how they
Yes.
share each other's work
Yeah.
and look at it before they have, you know, made the final edit.
It's really moving, that just the power of their friendship, the way they talk. Well, the way Guillermo talks about Iñárritu and
Yes.
Cuarón, that they sort of came up at the same time. They have very different sensibilities, but they give each other notes, and I think pull no punches, according to Guillermo.
According to what they say. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the programs we did here, we called it The Three Amigos, and the three of them were here.
That's the one
and
I
they were
saw.
just wonderful.
It was
They did
incredible.
great. Yeah.
And also Emmanuel Lubetsky, Chivo, who's a great DP and won for Birdman last year, the Oscar. He's in that group as well.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting way he did that, too. You know, how that camera acted backstage.
It was incredible. Rehearsed like a play.
Yeah. What's the difference between horror films and Gothic romance?
Well, I think Gothic romance takes its inheritor of literary
Yes,
inspiration, really. And the time that Gothic romance came around in the development of literature, it was actually a very rebellious genre, and it was a way of expressing things about society in the 18th century that were repressed, which were sexuality and the fear of death. And Gothic romance is acknowledged as the first genre to speak of the explained supernatural. So ghosts were emotions trapped in time, as opposed to emblems of some Judeo-Christian scale of gods and demons. That actually the Gothic romance invented the idea of ghosts as presences who had something to tell us, that they were somehow spirits who were unquiet or not yet at rest. But coupled with that, there is always, you know, a young heroine who's drawn out of love towards something very dangerous. And so these two forces of love and death are at war with each other in Gothic romance.
And for you, tell me about this character stretching for you.
Well, I'd never played anyone like Lucille. When I read the script, I don't know, she broke my heart. I was really moved by this. To me, it's a study of loneliness and a study of someone that is so desperately wants to be loved and to give love, but really doesn't understand. They don't understand how to do it. You know, Guillermo wrote some beautiful things about her where you realize the history of the house, and for Lucille, love has always been connected with a kind of pain and suffering, whether it be she's taking a beating and a caning for her brother to show as an act of love, or taking care of her mother who was suffering. For Lucille, it's one and the same. So, yeah, it was a stretch.
What does that make her?
I honestly, this is how I saw her. I saw her as an abused dog that, you know, when you see them in a cage or whatever, and they so desperately want to be held and to be touched. And the second you reach for them, they bite your hand.
Yeah. Every instinct is to fight back.
Exactly, but
Because
and then
of
they
the
kind
punishment
of,
they receive.
yeah, and they like then they're so vulnerable and they're so scared, and but you know, but there's just this whole mix of opposites, and that's how I saw Lucille.
This is a scene where you're welcoming Edith. Take a look at this. This should be fun. Yes. Interesting costumes as well.
Yes, I wore 7-inch platforms underneath that dress.
7 inches?
Yes, because this guy's super tall.
Oh, I see.
And it had to be twin-like, and, you know, Guillermo had written in the biography that the character loved constrictive clothing. And so, in addition to the corsets and everything being, you know, really difficult to move your arms or whatever, I had boots that were like this tall.
You and I have talked about, because of the number of times you've been here, expanding roles for women. Are you finding that? Because you seem to be doing a variety of kinds of things, at least.
Yeah, I'm
not
really
expanding, at least more diversified.
Yeah, I'm really lucky in that I have been given the opportunity to play characters that are very different, and perhaps that's because in 2011 I had 7 movies come out that the characters were so different. So perhaps that's allowed that in my career. But I will say, as an audience member, you know, I want to see more, complete characters for women, and not so many stereotypes. The great thing about this film is there's 2 incredible female roles.
Well, I'm told that Guillermo allowed you to pick one or the other. Is that true?
You know, Guillermo's that.
Does he say that?
Yeah. Well,
and you never knew that, or
no? I think he thought I was going to respond to Edith.
Because it was more what?
I don't know. Maybe he saw it as more similar to me. I mean, that's usually where casting comes from, is you think of like, ooh, okay, who is similar to this character? Maybe he thinks it was my personality, or I don't know. And then when I read it, I really wanted to challenge myself and do something I had never done. And I'm glad I did, because actually Mia is so much better than I would have been in that role. And I got to like...
Well, would you have liked to have played the other role?
I mean, I think they're both such great roles. I think, you know, when I read the script, I was just so excited that there were these 2 really fantastic characters that were females. And I think Guillermo is, you know, he has 2 daughters, and he's so in love with his wife. And I think in all of his films, he imbues the women characters with so much strength and
complexity.
And he never waters it down, and he never minimizes it. And that's quite rare for, you know, a male director.
I think that's what's really, I mean, if he were here, I think I speak for him in this regard.
Never forget an illness.
But you know, I align myself with him in this regard. I think he's done an extraordinary thing with this film, which is that the male characters, myself included, they're all quite ineffectual.
Ineffectual.
They are ineffectual. They are they try to do things and they don't succeed. Yeah. And the women on my left and right, you know, it is a.
We have to follow through.
They're stronger and more.
Well, it's a film about women. It really is. It's a film where the heroine is not saved by the tall, dark stranger, the Byronic hero. The heroine saves herself. And I think that's really profound and probably all too rare.
And how did you come to that in your own head?
To the film? Or,
to the character.
Oh, to the character. I think I mean, it kind of changed a little bit as we were filming, as it always does. But
Does it always?
I think so. I mean, it's the same thing about, you know, trying on the costumes. It's the sort of thing where you can, like, do so much preparation and then things just inevitably influence you
doing of the thing has an influence
when you're
on the
there.
thing.
Yeah, whether it's the set and the other actors, and, you know, it inevitably changes. So yeah, it changed a little bit as we went on, but I just found Guillermo's, he was just always so on it in terms of never letting us be, or, you know, never letting me be too passive.
Where were you born?
In Canberra, in Australia.
Yeah. And how did you make your way to film?
Super lowbrow in comparison to these 2
drama
drama students. I started being interested in film when I was 15, and then did like a Google search for agencies and joined a child acting agency when I was a teenager, and then...
And never stopped, never looked back.
Yeah, no, it's been good.
There's something I've found since I graduated from drama school, is that they can't train you in the truth. And
Exactly.
And I think Mia's genuinely one of the most natural actresses I've ever worked with. Guillermo and I used to joke she's incapable of not telling the truth. So.
She's incapable of inauthenticity.
That's right.
Inauthenticity. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thank-
never mind all that. I wouldn't say it was lowbrow.
Thank you for coming. It's great to have you here. Thank you. Great to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye. Crimson Peak opens on October 16th in theaters and on IMAX. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.